all devotees. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tata Jayam Udiret Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. Today we continue Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 15, श्लोक नंबर 27. देश काल अर्थयुक्तानि
देश काल अर्थयुक्तानि
ऋत ताप उपशमनी च
ऋत ताप उपशमनी च
हरन्ति स्मरतः चित्तम्
हरन्ति स्मरतः चित्तम्
गोविंद अभिहितानि मे
गोविंद अभिहितानि मे
देश काल अर्थयुक्तानि
देश काल अर्थयुक्तानि
ऋत ताप उपशमानि च
ऋत ताप उपशमानि च
हरन्ति स्मरतः चित्तम्
हरति स्मरन्तः चित्तम्
गोविंद अभिहितानि मे
गोविंद अभिहितानि मे
देश काल अर्थयुक्तानि ऋतताप उपशमानि च हरन्ति स्मरन्ति च चित्तम् गोविंद अभिहितानि मे.
देश
Translation.
काल अर्थयुक्तानि हृत उपशमनानि च हरन्ति स्मरन्ति चित्तं गोविंदम अभिहितानि मे.
Translation and purport by the Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Purport by the Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Here in Arjuna refers to the instructions of Bhagwadgita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone, but also for all time and in all lands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Vedanta Sutras. It is put within the study of the great historical epic Mahabharata, which was especially prepared for the less intelligent class, namely the women, the laborers, and those who are worthless descendants of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and higher sections of the Vaishyas. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita again after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people when Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence. He wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical time, not only for solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour. The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to material eyesight. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord, but by his inconceivable power, the Lord can incarnate himself to the sense perception of the conditioned souls in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is also another form of the Lord's manifested energy. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord is also the incarnation of the Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. One can derive the same benefit from Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did in the personal presence of the Lord. The faithful human being who is desirous of being liberated from the clutches of the material existence can very easily take advantage of the Bhagavad Gita, and with this in view, the Lord instructed Arjuna as if Arjuna were in need of it. In the Bhagavad Gita, 5 important factors of knowledge have been delineated pertaining to one, the Supreme Lord; second, the living being; third, nature; fourth, time and space; fifth, the process of activity. Out of this, the Supreme Lord and the living being are qualitatively one. The difference between the two has been analyzed as the difference between the whole and the part and parcel. Nature is inert matter, displaying the interaction of three different modes, and eternal time and unlimited space are considered to be beyond the existence of the material nature. Activities of the living being are different varieties of aptitudes which can entrap or liberate the living being within and without material nature. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and later the subject matters are elaborated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. For further enlightenment, out of the 5 subjects, the Supreme Lord, the living entity, nature, and time and space are eternal. But the living entities, nature, and time are under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is absolute and completely independent of any other control. The Supreme Lord is the supreme controller. The material activity of the living being is beginningless, but it can be rectified by transferal into the spiritual quality. Thus, it can cease its material qualitative reactions. Both the Lord and the living entity are cognizant, and both have the sense of identification of being conscious as a living force. But the living being, under the condition of material nature, called Mahat Tattva, misidentifies himself as being different from the Lord. The whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to the aim of eradicating such a misconception and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. When such an illusion is eradicated by knowledge and renunciation, the living beings are responsible actors and enjoyers also. The sense of enjoyment in the Lord is real, but such a sense in the living being is a sort of wishful desire only. This difference in the consciousness is the distinction of the two identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there is no difference between the Lord and the living being. The living being is therefore eternally one and different simultaneously. The whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita stands on this principle. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord and the living being are both described as Sanatan or eternal, and the Lord's abode for beyond the material sky is also described as Sanatan. The living being is invited to live in the Sanatan existence of the Lord, and the process which can help a living being to approach the Lord's abode, where the liberated activity of the soul is exhibited, is called Sanatan Dharma. One cannot, however, reach the eternal abode of the Lord without being free from the misconception of material identification. And the Bhagavad Gita gives us the clue how to achieve this stage of perfection. The process of being liberated from the misconception of material identification is called in different stages: fruitive activity, empiric philosophy, and devotional service, up to the transcendental realization. Such transcendental realization is made possible by dovetailing all the above terms in relation with the Lord. Prescribed duties of the human being, as directed in the Vedas, can gradually purify the sinful mind of the conditioned soul and raise him to the stage of knowledge. The purified stage of acquiring knowledge becomes the basis of devotional service to the Lord. As long as one is engaged in researching the solution of the problems of life, his knowledge is called Gyan or purified knowledge. But on realizing the actual solution of life, one becomes situated in the devotional service of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the problems of life by discriminating the soul from the elements of matter, and proves by all reason and argument that the soul is indestructible in all circumstances, and that the outer covering of matter, the body and the mind, change for another term of material existence, which is full of misery. The Bhagavad Gita is therefore made for terminating all different types of misery, and Arjuna took shelter of this great knowledge which had been imparted to him during the Kurukshetra. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवाञ्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेव श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्विताञ्च नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण
कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So as we have seen, Arjuna was very much disturbed, and when he has returned and Yudhishthir Maharaj has inquired, he has finally given the news that not only has Krishna left, but even the Yadus, they had a fight, and everyone but for 4 or 5 have already left the world. So he was devastated. And not only that, when he was returning, he had to fight some coward men, and they defeated him. So this verse is a profound statement which highlights transformative power. Please remember, I'm using the word transformative power of the words and teachings of Lord Govinda, that is Krishna. So in this particular slok, Arjuna is calling him as Govinda. Govinda means one who is so it has two meanings, both senses as well as the cows. So whatever he has spoken has a transformative power. And it also emphasizes how the divine teachings are not only relevant to the context of time, place, and purpose, they also have the ability to alleviate deepest sorrows of the heart. They captivate the mind of those who remember and reflect upon them. That is why this shloka from Bhagavatam is very important. And Arjuna is telling that he received the instructions directly from personality of Godhead. The instructions which were relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. And because of that, he's always attracted to those instructions, especially right now, because my heart is burning, Yudhishthir Maharaj. So the teachings of Krishna, they are not abstract, they are not irrelevant. They are deeply connected to practical realities of life. They provide guidance, contextual as well as universal. They have the power to soothe and alleviate the tapa. Tapa means sorrows and afflictions of hrit, that is heart. Wisdom of Krishna is deeply healing. This Bhagwadgita, that the knowledge, it addresses the root cause of human suffering, and it also gives us the path to inner peace, to contentment, and having a permanent solution to the four problems of life: Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Prabhupada ji gives a very nice purport which summarizes the importance of Bhagavad Gita and the place it holds in our actual lives today. Krishna left these instructions not for Arjuna, but for all time, all planets, all universes. It is not a knowledge for someone only born in India, but anyone who is across any planetary system. Because Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. We, because of our limited time span, because of our limited, I'll say, brainy matter nowadays, memory, the effect of Kali, we may not get time to go through the vast Vedic literatures, Upanishads, Purans, Vedanta Sutras. That is why Krishna has nicely presented Bhagavad Gita. And that too as part of Mahabharata. And as we all know, it was informed to us in Bhagavatam itself that Mahabharata was written by Vyasdev ji for the less intelligent class, women, laborers, worthless descendants of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and even the higher sections of the Vaishyas. And Bhagavad Gita is made a part of that. That is why Bhagavad Gita is something which Krishna wanted everyone to know. So it becomes our moral responsibility that we study Bhagavad Gita, and where Bhagavad Gita ends, Bhagavatam starts, because it expands the knowledge further. When Krishna was in a dilemma, Arjuna was in a dilemma, Krishna guided him. And even now, if you remember right now, this shloka section that we are seeing, here Arjuna has come face to face where he is being vanquished of the acquired power and prominence. He has just lost to the coward men, to robbers. And that is why he's saying that I want to remember the great teachings of Govinda again. So this proves that Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times. It is not that we'll only get solace from mental agony, from anxiety, from fear, from sorrow, but it also gives us the way to get out of great entanglements, which can be quite embarrassing in the material world. It's not that because Krishna is not there, Prabhuji, how do I know what Krishna is saying? No, he may not be visible to the material eyesight, but still we can take instructions of Krishna. In fact, the material senses, they could have never estimated Krishna at all. But by his inconceivable power, Krishna has incarnated himself in the form of Bhagavad Gita, Grantha Avatar, in the form of Bhagavatam. So this is also another form of Lord's manifested energy. And it is said that there is no difference between the sound representation of Krishna and Krishna himself. So we can derive the same benefit by hearing, by reading Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did when Krishna spoke him personally. So if we are faithful and we really want to get liberated from material existence, then we have to take advantage of Bhagavad Gita. Because this is given directly by Krishna. And the 5 subject matters, as Prabhupada ji says, they're very important. Who is Bhagwan? The Supreme Lord, the Jiva, the living being, Prakriti, the nature, Kala, the time and space, and Karma, the process of activity. So, when we are talking about Krishna and the Jiva, the living being, qualitatively we are one. But quantitatively, we are different. Because we are just part and parcel, while Krishna is Vibhu, the whole, and we are Anu. So the other part is the nature, Prakriti. This is inert matter. So there we get the 3 modes of the material nature: the goodness, the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, the 3 gunas. So they have interactions, and nature is inert. It just displays the interactions. The time, the space, they are eternal. They are beyond the material nature. And the activities, that is the 5th part, they are the various varieties of aptitudes which can either entangle us or help us get out of material natures influence. So all these subject matters are very concisely discussed in Bhagavad Gita. And so this helps us in actual enlightenment. Krishna is eternal. Living entity is also eternal. Nature is eternal. Time, space are eternal. But amongst these four, the living entity, nature, time, they are all under the control and direction of Krishna. But Krishna is absolute, completely independent of any control. And that is why he is Param Ishvara, supreme controller. The Jiva as well as Krishna, they all understand, they are conscious that they are living, they are cognizant. But because of the effects of material nature, Mahatattva, the Jiva forgets everything and misidentifies himself as being different from Krishna. So, though we are connected by a thread with Krishna, that thread becomes invisible and we feel that we are alone, we can do whatever we want. Well, actually, we are puppets in his hands. So, the Vedic knowledge is to remove this misconception, to remove this which has covered this direct connection with Krishna. So, the moment this illusion of material identification is removed, the living beings, they will understand their true nature. And this can be done only by knowledge and renunciation. We all try to have enjoyment, but then we cannot enjoy outside Krishna or away from Krishna, because Krishna is the only enjoyer, he is the only Purusha, while everyone else is there to serve him. While he is Bhukta, we are the one who are to be enjoyed. So anyone who thinks that he will enjoy, it's only a wishful desire which can never come true. So though we are conscious, Krishna is conscious, but we are under Krishna's control. We are the ones who are always going to be controlled. So thus we are qualitatively same, but we are also different. So one and different simultaneously. And Bhagavad Gita explains this principle clearly. We are both Sanatana, eternal, and Krishna's abode is also Sanatana. And in fact, we are invited in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, please come back. And he also gives us the process how we can approach the Lord's abode so that we can also have the eternal happiness. But we cannot go there unless we are completely removing the material identification. And how we achieve and reach that stage of perfection is important. So it can be karma yoga, it can be jnana yoga, and then finally it will have to be bhakti yoga, which will then lead us to the transcendental realization. So it is important that we do our prescribed duties as human beings, which are directed in the Vedas as per our varna and ashrama. So once we start doing our prescribed duties, it can gradually purify our sinful mind and we can be raised to the stage of jnana, knowledge. And then the moment we start acquiring knowledge, we understand the importance of bhakti. So then we start doing devotional service and we come to the ultimate instructions of Bhagavad Gita, which Krishna has given. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishyami ma shuch. So we go for complete surrenderance to Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita started with the problems of life. It started with discrimination of soul from elements of matter, and then proves by all reasons and arguments That soul is indestructible in all circumstances. This outer covering, the body, the mind, it can change from one body to another, from one term to another, but it will always be full of misery. So the importance is terminating all types of different miseries. And for that, we have to take shelter of the great knowledge which is imparted to Arjuna by Krishna. So this verse which we are studying today in Bhagavatam, it has got key themes. First being, Krishna's instructions are timeless and they are practical. Even today, Krishna's words remain relevant in all situations. They provide guidance on whatever moral dilemmas we have. They provide guidance on devotion, on duty, on self realization. That is why Bhagavad Gita is timeless, it is practical. Even great personalities, historical figures, everyone has taken to Bhagavad Gita, be it Einstein, be it Newton, be it Mahatma Gandhi, be it anyone. Secondly, Krishna's words provide inner peace. Whenever devotees feel distressed, remembering Krishna's teachings helps them overcome mental and emotional struggles. And quite frequently, we have this feeling of distress. So, the solution is that we have to take shelter of Krishna's words. Third is remembrance of Krishna removes distress. See, we can always take shelter in his song, just as Arjuna did, and experience spiritual relief. That is very important. The fourth is applying Krishna's instructions in our life. Just like Krishna's words guided Arjuna in times of crisis, we too must turn to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam for wisdom in difficult situations. And whatever is told there, we need to apply. And what are the major things which are told? One is Purna Sharanagati. Second is Manmana Bhav Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. He has not said anything else. He is not expecting anything from us. Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. This is what he says. We need to implement these instructions in our life. And the fifth important thing we learn is the power of spiritual remembrance. It's not that just Bhagavad Gita Patan. No. The instructions should not be just read, but remembered. We have to also contemplate upon them. Daily japa, chanting of the holy names, kirtan, the singing of the devotional songs, shravan, hearing Krishna's pastimes, they help us keep his words in our heart. So just as Arjuna found peace by remembering Krishna, even devotees, even today, we can overcome anxiety by immersing ourselves in Krishna's teachings. Let us understand today from this shloka that Krishna's words are not temporary, they remain eternally relevant and powerful. Even in Krishna's apparent physical absence, his teachings continue to protect, guide, comfort everyone. By remembering and applying Krishna's instructions in our own lives, we can overcome distress, stay connected to him. And that is the importance of Bhagavad Gita. So let us stick to these instructions faithfully under the instructions of our spiritual master and make our life successful.